is the Jake for the State podcast, and this is the call for every red-blooded, God-fearing, liberty-loving patriot to prepare yourself, take your position,
stand your ground,
and advance the cause of freedom. Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back. I am here with my next guest, Major Ed Pulido. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, I tell you what a great day to be an American, and glad to be on your show. And you know what? We've seen a lot of each other. That's always a good thing. You know?
It's always a good thing. Yes. I can't get enough of Major Ed.
Yeah. Empowering, man. Making things happen.
Yeah. The iron sharpening iron. It's a real thing. And so it's always good to be with like-minded people on the same journey.
That's right.
And,
That's right.
And I know you are. But speaking of journey, let's give the listeners just a brief overview of your journey. You're a veteran, obviously a major. Give everyone a recap of where you served, how long you served.
Yeah, well, you know, I always usually start out anything that I talk about, starting with my father, the motivation behind what we're all about here in this great nation. I will tell you that my father was a Colombian immigrant who came to this country and basically thrived and was very successful. He taught us that, you know what, the value of not only living by our faith, loving this country as our new nation, but also inspiring and motivating one another as a family, Hispanic family living in America, and what that all looks like and what those contributions will entail as we, you know, develop our lives in the future. And the thing about it is that it was very inspiring to hear him talk at a young age and really develop into what I call, you know, the adulthood side of the house for me, where I joined the United States Army at age 17, took the oath of office. I always tell people this actually is a funny story. My father's the type of dad that, you know what, in December, I remember he would come and he would get us all together, you know, and right before Christmas dinner, and he'd ask us, you know, what we're going to be doing. Specifically, it was my turn because I was ready to start, you know, college. And he asked me what I was going to do, and I basically told him, you know, I'm going to go to college, play baseball, have a great time, or play sports, whatever it may be. And you know what? He said, yeah, but by the way, you also have a appointment with the United States Army recruiter on January 6th. So
wow.
January 6th is like a pretty important day for me. So glad that you know, the leaders in Washington, D.C. decided to make that a bad day, but it ain't a bad day for me. It's when I basically understood that I needed to, you know what, and involve myself in taking the oath of office at some point, and that happened in February of 1985.
Now, was that a requirement from your father? It's like, hey, you're gonna leave. Were you gonna enlist? Did he require you to enlist or go check it out?
No, it was check it out and you're going to go enlist. And that's what's so powerful about it. You know what? Parents don't do that these days like that. But my dad told us, here's what you're going to do. Here's your roadmap to success. I'll tell you, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'm just honored and grateful that, you know, I had a father that really knew the direction that, you know, my life needed to go into. And so for me, you know, I embarked in that, of course, was in the reserves and the National Guard early in my life, and then was going to college. It was actually a really good thing because I was getting paid. I was actually able to pay for a car payment and really kind of make my life what it was all about at that time, where people didn't have a lot of money in their pockets, you know, and going to college. I actually had a really nice thing going on. And then, of course, I get an ROTC scholarship, and everything just kind of fell into place. And that to me was the inspiration behind service to this country. And, you know, of course, you know, really my story starts on August 17th of '04 when I hit the roadside bomb. But all of that said, I always have to put it in perspective. Like, how did I get there? And that's how I got there. And all of us have a story to tell. And that's what's so powerful about America is that, you know what, we need to tell our stories. And to the young people out there, we need to tell a story of, you know what, how did you become who you are today? And success is what it was all about, because that's what my dad would always preach. You know what? we are a successful nation, but we're also successful people, and you have to contribute. There's no takers in this game. You know what? If you're a taker, what's going to happen is that you're going to take, and there's nothing to give to anyone else anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So at some point, you've got to be a contributor, and that's the passion and the direction that your life will go into. And you know what? That's why I'm here today, you know, because I'm passionate about what I do, but I also understand that I have to contribute to the greater good.
You know, I've got to ask, Major, being a son of an immigrant, and what's on the mind of everybody right now is the southern border and the flood of immigrants who are seeking that better life. And many of them good people, you know, fathers wanting a better life for their children and their family. And of course, that's mixed in with criminals and mixed in with drug traffickers and human traffickers. And, you know, my heart goes out to those honest families who are just looking for a better life, like your father sought for you. And of course, you guys came over here legally and reaped the benefits of that. Just love your perspective on the border.
Well, I will tell you that my parents are not in favor of what's been going on down there. My mom's Puerto Rican, my dad's Colombian, and they don't like the fact that it's a disrespect to this country. I
Right.
don't know what other country you just let people in like that. And look, God bless them. I'm compassionate. I'm empathetic. But there's one thing that you're going to find about me is that, you know what? At the end of the day, you don't just go showing up in somebody's doorstep and think that you're going to come in and eat their food and take care of all their, you know, take care of things in the house and just roll over things like that. That's just not how it works. And I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone, but I'm not going to offend anyone because I will tell you what, when you cross that border, you're basically on a legal, there's a legal issue there. And that is what everybody's kind of striving for and saying is that, you know what, this election is about immigration. It's out of control. And the sad part about it is, like you said, there's criminals coming over. You don't know anyone that's coming over looks like. I mean, yeah, you might see the outside, but you don't know what's going on in the inside. And I have an empathy and a compassion for the people. I want them to thrive. I want them to be successful. We need immigrants. But the first thing I would do, and everybody says, well, what's the solution? I'll tell you the solution. First thing I would have done is I would have just stuck to the same policies that were on before, create some policies that really change the trajectory of immigration, and have a system where in these immigration states that have these issues, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, whichever states they are, Florida, that you have individuals there that are basically doing what we did in New York with the Italians, the Irish, and others that came to this country and had a way of accountability. That is what the American people are saying, man.
Yeah.
If you really look at the dynamics, it's about accountability. You don't want some Venezuelan, God bless them, because my father's Colombian. That's right next to, you know, Colombia's right next to Venezuela. So what you don't want is just individuals coming here and there's no documentation, and then you just set them free. And what's happening is
Right.
that we're seeing a lot of the people, and I feel for law enforcement. I have a cousin who is a border agent, um, supervisory type, and you know they told me stories of these people running and high speed chases and the
Mm.
crime that's going on in these smaller towns and just the fact that the resources aren't there to provide support. Again, you can't just let that happen. And I think when you really look at at what happened here, if you don't look at it from a political perspective of what, because there's no other way to look at it. Give me a conclusive argument on saying that what is going on down there is okay. The fentanyl crisis, the drug cartels making huge amounts of money, the young children being raped and pilfered, adults, same thing, and being taken advantage. I just feel sorry for those individuals. On the other hand, I
Yeah.
don't like the fact that I'm seeing men coming across the border from all of these other countries and there's no documentation. At some point, I hope we don't get attacked because you know what? This country has done so much to, you know, have IDs. When you go through the airport, you have to have a certain, you know, there's certain guidelines that you have to meet. And for these individuals to just come over and there's none of those guidelines and those effects, why are we even protecting anybody on an airplane then? Because if you
Yeah.
don't think that this is unsafe too, and if you're going to do things like this, then you know what? Across the board, have some consistency, and that's the problem that we have. Very inconsistent policies, and you know what? Biden is in charge, and this is his problem.
Well, it's just so clear that there's an agenda, and I believe it's connected to the election. And we can go on and on about that. But, thinking about your family, your father, who came here for a better life for himself and his family, um, and those then that are just allowed to come over here because they crossed over a line, it really diminishes the effort that your father went through. And I have friends. I have a friend from Ireland who's been waiting for a few years now on his green card, on his ability to become an American citizen. And the effort that he's going through, taking tests, going through all the loopholes and jumping through all the hoops, all that's diminished and minimized whenever you can just go to the southern border and walk through and get a Visa card and a hotel stay and free food and plane ticket, bus ticket. I mean, he says he hears it all the time. Hey, just go to the southern border and walk through. You'll get all the benefits. But he says, no, I want to do it right. And those who are committed to doing it right, like your father did, should be commended, and their efforts should be honored by ensuring that our border is secure and that those in the future go through the same process.
Exactly.
So, yeah,
And Jake, I will tell you, again, I'm compassionate, empathetic. I have some
right.
Hispanic people that are doing some great stuff for us. My lawn mowing people, the people that do some great work. We've got great people that have come over here and are working hard. Those aren't the people we're talking about here. We're
Yeah,
talking about individuals that are doing some things that are not in conforming to the laws of this country. And that to me, it weighs heavy on the American people. It's extremely disrespectful to all of us, like you said, who did it right. And
yeah,
and if you're going to come over here, well then don't commit crimes. Don't don't have unnecessary negative attention on you, because those are kind of things that, you know what, those are the things that create that hateful and negative context. And that to me
yeah,
is what we're seeing. You know, killing someone in Georgia, a young lady, tell that to that family. How's that family feel? And then you know what? You can't even get their name right in your State of the Union address. I mean, that to me is when you're out of touch. You're out of touch with what's going on in reality. And the sad part about it is that there's other countries like Mexico, you know what? They're not just letting people just roll around in their country like that. I mean, and it does happen. They've let them come through and then they come through the United States. Don't get me wrong. But my point is that there's just some different things, and we can put some great protocols in place to change the trajectory of the immigration issue so that it
yeah.
works for all. That's all I want. I want it to work for all. And if you want to come here, do it right, be accountable, pay your taxes, and basically, let me give you one quick example where I changed on immigration. When my friend Bob Berry Jr., who a lot of people know, was killed by a illegal immigrant and had been here and deported, that changed me forever. And the reason
Oh,
is
yeah.
because that on that morning, that gentleman, my good friend Bob Berry Jr., was just driving his car. I think he was on his little motorcycle. That's what he was. He was just doing his thing, just a typical Sunday. You know what? People go to church. People take the day off. It was that kind of thing. And then an illegal immigrant does that. And this person had been deported. And, I had an argument with my sister a little bit about it because I know that she feels compassionate about these individuals, and I get that. But in that same token, you know what? That compassion goes just so far. You can't be compassionate about somebody that really does something to one of your good friends. I'll never see
Hmm.
him ever again. And the sad part is because of immigration and because we can't get our act together in Congress about it, you know what? Look what happened to us, an innocent individual. And that to me is the game changing thing that I talk about.
Well, it comes down to principle, comes down to right and wrong, to law, to the Constitution. I mean, you made your vow to the Constitution to defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and you lost a leg in the process.
Yeah.
You gave more than most for the cause. And so, I can't imagine how you feel having given your everything for this country and then seeing it just diminished. And that's what you do when you open a border and just let anyone come in and live by their own laws. I mean, what is this country then if there is no honoring of principle and constitution and the things that always made it great? All of that seems to be just set aside to accommodate what you feel like doing. And that's where I'm concerned about the future of this country and why I encourage people to, re-engage with their family, with their community, with their church, to get back to the basics, to get back to local, because that's what made this country great in the beginning. And we've just spiraled so far out into left field that the only way back, I believe, is to look in the mirror, to start here, ground zero, where I'm at, take control of myself, my family, my community, and let that ripple out across the nation. But we're in dire straits in the nation. And like I said, you made your vow, you committed to defend this country. And I believe that a man like you of integrity, that vow doesn't go away. That's something that is still in you and that you're committed to.
Well, I think it hurts too, Jake, when you have to abide by the law and then you see someone else not. And this stuff that's going on in New York City, not even the immigration issue, but the crime issue right now, the crime wave of people basically, just killed that officer 21 times, have been through the judicial system, in and out, in and out. And, I was watching an interview with an individual who actually studies this. And one of the things that came out is that with deviant behavior, and that's what we're seeing with some of the immigrants that are coming in. I'm not blanketing them all, don't get me wrong, but we've got some that are coming in from Venezuela that they've emptied their jails. And these individuals are coming over across the border, pedophilia, you've got individual sexual assaults, murders. Those are not the kind of people we want running around in our neighborhoods out here. And if somebody has a different solution for this, you tell me. But at the end of the day, that officer, God bless him and his family, because we do a lot of work with first responders. It sickens you that even our own citizens in this country are committing murder or committing heinous crimes. And you know what? They're just getting a slap on the wrist. I just think that's inappropriate. And that's what we're seeing with this immigration issue and the connection to crime in America is that, you know what? It's business as usual for everybody that wants to commit these heinous crimes. And by the way, now we've got these immigrants coming in, some of them that are actually doing it too. And I just think that's a formula for disaster. And you hit it right on the nose, man. That's not the country that our founding fathers created, put together a constitution and the democratic process of all of us coming together and finding solutions to problems. And we're not even seeing that. So that's even problematic.
Yeah. And speaking about business as usual, we saw the governor of New York and the mayor of New York who wanted to come and attend the funeral of that officer who was killed. And they were turned around at the door and said, no, you're not welcome here because it's your policies that resulted in his death. So don't just think that you're going to do business as usual, come to this funeral and say a few good words whenever it was your policies that resulted in his death. I was so glad to see the family didn't just go along with it, but they turned him around and said, no, you're not welcome here.
Well, and you know what? It was the right decision, don't you think?
It was.
And the sad part about that is that that's not what we should be doing. But when leaders come in and they're strutting and they're just wanting eye candy, look, I get it. People said that
What's
about
accountability?
President Trump, but I think I will tell you this much: he was sincere, and I don't understand why the law enforcement community has been voting for these people and these progressive policies for so long. And I don't know what the answer to that is, but I vote on conviction and about the person. Um, I'll say it right here. I've actually voted for some Democrats in my lifetime. But are people that I actually had a connection with and a relationship with. Joe Dorman comes to mind,
Makes a difference.
and Joe Dorman's a great guy. I remember helping him with his campaign years ago. You know what? He's a great Democrat that would have done well. He did well at the state office here in our state, just like you did. And he lived by his principles, but at least he knew that he could come over to the other side, shake your hand, and say, hey, let's work together. Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan, all those people, if you recall, they were able to go across and basically do a handshake and say, what are we going to do for the betterment of our country? And now we
Yeah.
don't have that. We have all of these political people posturing. That deal with Trump. Look, God, if you don't think that the deal with Trump and then the attorney general and that big old lawsuit thing that they put together, or whatever it was, that civil issue that they had in New York, if you want to do business in New York that way, that's fine. But just remember, man, they may go after you on that kind of stuff. And I'm not here to defend Trump or anything of that nature. I'm just here to put it into perspective that those are the kind of policies that really tear a country apart. And the thing about it is they didn't even find any civil injustice there. It was just
Yeah.
done like, hey, this is what we think. Who hasn't inflated numbers in the past? Like when I go and trade in a car, I think my car's worth a lot more money than they're going to give me. And that's my example is like, you know what? You never know what anything's worth or whatever, but that's just
Oh,
the
it's so relative. So relative.
country that we live in.
Hey, you know what? You let Trump borrow your car for 1 week, and it will double in value, if not 10 times value, just because he drove it around for a week.
Well,
I
yeah.
mean, I say it all the time. You have a fingernail from one of the former Beatles, and it'll sell for $1 million. So it's,
Well,
what is it really worth?
right, but check this out. This was like the evolutionary process for me on this thing. When I knew that that was a scam. Okay, it is. I'm going to call it a scam. It is.
Yeah.
You can't try to tell him that he inflated his numbers and then you deflate his numbers, meaning that Mar-a-Lago, you said that that was worth $18 million, when in reality that thing's worth a lot more than that. And that's my point. That's that's fraudulent in itself. It's
Exactly.
devaluing someone's property, and that is un-American, man. And I don't care if it's a Democrat, Republican, whoever it is. That is devaluing somebody's property, and that to me is fraudulent in itself.
Well, like you said, hopefully all of this will just open people's eyes to start voting differently, that we can't keep voting these people into office or not voting and they get in by default. I mean, we've got to get engaged. We got to vet the right people, get behind the right people, and because these are elected officials, they were voted in. And so we got to do our due diligence and take the country back. Or else this kind of corruption is just going to continue. I do want to ask you. I mean, thank you for your service, obviously, and then the work you've done since then with your great foundation, just working with veterans, raising money, supporting those who have also served our country, and then you find yourself here in the private sector. What is the feel? What is the feel right now of where your life is currently compared to, well, your military days, your days working in your foundation? It's kind of a new season in your life, but a really good one.
It is. I tell you, I decided to embark on something that I thought would be very powerful, and that was to get involved in real estate, along with doing the philanthropy causes that I represent. You know, change of season is always something that's kind of powerful. Not always are we going to look at things in one way or another. Change is always a good thing. And for me, I needed to kind of look at some brighter areas of my life in the future at age 55. Where do I go from here? Do I continue philanthropy, or can I do something else that kind of is for the greater good? I will tell you that real estate is something that's extremely powerful, and joining
Yeah.
First American Title was a very, powerful thing for me. I will say this, that sometimes you want to stand by your convictions, who you are, what you stand for. In the real estate world, a lot of the people that have been in this field have been champions for a long time. Community development, trying to take care of the needy and the poor, making sure that your community is vibrant and beautiful. And those are the kind of things that I don't think that the real estate world gets a pat on the back on. But if you look at where we live here in Oklahoma City specifically, and the surrounding areas, it's a city that's vibrant. It's moving forward. It's got a
Yeah.
future. Leadership plays a role. We've got a mayor that has thought about things in the future. Yeah, there's strengths there. There's weaknesses. All of us have our strengths and weaknesses. But the thing about it is that, I see real estate as being the beacon of light for our country. And everyone wants home ownership. Everyone wants commercial ownership. And you know what? That's how businesses thrive. And you look at communities that have not done that around the country and done investing in their local communities, and look what happens. Crime goes up. You have dilapidated buildings. Infrastructure is horrible. Water is not clean. The other things that go along with that play a role in bringing that city down. And I just think that it has some politics to it. So for us, I love doing that. Excuse me. And in working in the philanthropy community to just help people, because that's what I'm all about.
Right. Well, I love how even in your venture currently, it's really comes back to principle. It comes back to, okay, it's not, you're not just in it to make more money. I think that whenever you have that deeper call in your life, and you understand the bigger picture, you just, for me, I've always been that way, and money is not a driver in my life. I can't do it just for money. But when it's connected to something that's going to benefit people or benefit the community, man, I can get behind that. And so it's encouraging to hear you say that. I hear that in your tone and your voice and your words. It's like, I'm in this field. Yes, it's real estate. It's lucrative on one hand, but also it's connected to purpose in the bigger picture.
Well, and you know what? It was so funny because it was my dad who said that I had to really look into real estate. Told me and Karen that, and
Yeah.
he said, you know what? What you've done, you've been successful at it. There's other things that you can do that be successful at it too.
Right.
And that was just one of the things that came up. And when you hand over the keys, and I've seen this to a family of diverse background, whether they're Hispanic, African American, Black, whatever it may be, Native American, Asian, man, the power of handing those keys over to somebody, and they knowing that they worked so hard to get into that home or that
Yeah.
business, and we make those customer service things a reality for them. And
Mm.
that's when you know the power of what you're doing. And that to me is something that we should celebrate, as opposed to all the negativity that goes around with other things.
Yeah, no doubt. I can't think of real estate without also thinking of Klaus Schwab saying
Yeah.
that you'll own nothing and be happy. And we resoundingly reject that mentality, that philosophy that we'll just rent and take handouts from the government, because home ownership, owning a business is empowering.
It is.
And to be pushing for that for everyone, no matter the color, no matter the economic background, whatever, the opportunity is there for everyone to own. And that home ownership is powerful, and that's what helps you really build wealth and move forward in the world. So, um, yeah, you're talking about handing over those keys, and they have ownership now. That there's nothing more powerful than that, and it's in direct contradiction to Klaus Schwab and his idea that we'll own nothing and be happy.
Well, and that's right. And that's where I think the immigrants come in. A lot of immigrants, all they want is a better life. They want to contribute. They want to have the
Sure.
power of all of that. Can you imagine this, Jake? running around and not having any legal status in a country. I could see
You're right.
that.
We're not helping them out any.
No, and I could see that that would be hurtful for your kids to go to school and be mocked. Look, I was mocked. I was told things, but you know what? I overcame those things. I didn't let those things get to me because I knew that I had a higher purpose and that God was with me. My faith was with me. And the thing about it is that we started with immigration, but you look at the real estate world, there's a lot of immigrants that all they want is a home for their loved ones. Maybe there's 20 of them that are living in that home because that's all they can afford. But you know what? They keep their lawn mowed. They take care of their stuff. They, take care of their home. They have a school to go to. Man, that's every opportunity. And maybe they will excel to be somebody greater in the future, a greater contributor, a greater supporter, a greater community leader. That's what we should be striving to do instead of just handing everybody out something for the greater good because it makes us feel good for the moment. Yeah, that's a moment thing. That's not an empowerment thing. And that's what we're talking about here.
Well, I think that's the point too. Is the Biden administration doesn't really care about these people. They would love to create a welfare state where now they have more dependents, so that big brother, little God government can give them handouts and make them dependent. And so, yeah, it is not with their best interest in mind. Absolutely. I mean, if we had their best interest in mind, we'd help them get here legally, and then build a life of their own that they could own and be proud of and reap the benefit of and pass down to their children. I mean, that's truly helping someone having their best interest in mind. And we don't see that from the current administration, for sure.
And let me give you a policy point of view. Everybody says, well, what's your solution? You know what? Every solution is number one, you find out who's here that doesn't have legal status. Number two, they get taxed or there's a fine. That fine may be $10,000, $20,000 that they have to pay through the course of their lives to be here. That goes for everybody, man. It's not just one person. That goes for everybody. It may be a family thing where you combine a family and that they pay this fine. Then you get a certain status card, and that status card builds up until you actually are able to pay that fine, and then you get permanent status. I mean, to me, those are the kind of ideas that you got to come up with. And some people are going to say, well, that's not a solution that we can live by or this or that. I'm like thinking, well, put something on the table because that's the problem we have.
Right.
We don't even have anything.
At this point, we'll take anything.
Yeah.
At this point, anything would be better than what we have.
Well, and part of that is, when I was growing up, you were taught English, you were taught Spanish. It's great to have two languages. There's nothing wrong with that. But you also needed to make sure that you went to school, you contributed, and then maybe you went to college. And those are the kind of empowerment things, or maybe join the military or the Peace Corps in your community to clean up the community, whatever it may be. There has to be some level of skin in the game. And right now, this free for all is not skin in the game.
Exactly. Well, I didn't intend to talk about immigration so much, but I think it's just a natural part of your story and such a great tie-in to, I think, the most relevant story that we're all thinking about in this day and age is the border. What does it mean these days? What does it mean to be an American and to own land, to own property? All these things are wrapped up together. So I don't want to go too much longer, but I so appreciate your time, Major Ed, and all that you're doing currently, even through real estate with First American Title. Such a great company. I've had a chance to sit down with the president and get to know the people there, get to know you. And so, I don't know, I highly recommend them as well.
Well, and we all live by the principles of there's different words that we use and our values and all of that. I'm just amazed at how important this company is to our community. And there's other companies like that, but I'm just biased to this one because I feel like it's a powerful thing. And then, of course, working with John Daly and the Major Ed Heart of a Lion Foundation, it's just a winning combination. And the other charities I've represented, Folds of Honor, Warriors for Freedom, and now working with Empowering Our Veterans, which is the new one that we've been working on. We also have another one that
Awesome.
we do stuff in the oil and gas industry, environmental innovators of America. I mean, when you look at all of that stuff, philanthropy goes a long way, and it's part of our infrastructure, it's part of our support system. But it was always meant for a hand up and not a handout. And that to me is what
Exactly.
empowers all of us. And so I'm proud of you, your family, what you've already done. And I was proud to help you on your campaign. And you know what? At the end of the day, look where you're at today. You're a voice and a voice of reason, because a lot of people discredit us for stuff sometimes, but they don't really know the hardcore who we are. And we're about
Right.
loving everyone, but also living by some principles. Because if you don't have principles and a foundation, you know what? You have a cracked life. And the thing about it is, I don't want any cracks in my life.
Exactly. Well, I tell you what, let's plan on doing this again. We'll dig a little bit deeper into your foundation, your philanthropic work. I think that's such a good emphasis as well.
All right. Well, let's do it. And hey, congratulations on your show, and keep up the good work, and hoorah.
Thank you. Hurrah. Thank you, sir. God bless us. Major Ed Pulido. Appreciate you guys.